Hello, movie lovers. Today I'm going to start digging into this America Lost and Found, the BBS story um, box set that Criterion put out a few years ago. And today I'm not going to go through them chronologically. Today I'm going to focus on Drive He Said, which is on a one disc with a safe place. I thought of doing them both together, but I think I'll do two separate videos. Um, Drive, he said, is a 1971 film directed by Jack Nicholson, one of only three movies that Jack Nicholson directed. He does not star in this. The other two movies that Nicholson directed, Going South and The Two Jakes, he did star in. He also adopted the screenplay and helped produce the film. And it's a story, and you wouldn't be surprised with being Jack Nicholson. It's a story about basketball, at least partially. A star college basketball player. They're filming on the University of Oregon campus in Eugene, Oregon. A star basketball player, a pro prospect. He is having an affair with the wife of a friendly professor who is very hip in the style of professors in the early 1970s in the time of student protest. He's having an affair with the wife of this professor, and he also has a roommate, and this roommate is a radical. He is staging these elaborate and very scary theatrical pieces. He's also popping pills every time we see him, and the draft board is after him. He has to go for his draft physical. So I'm imagining he's not a student, because if you were a student in this era, you got a student deferment. You weren't going to be drafted until your student deferment ran out. So I guess he's not. He had been a member of he had gone to college. The professors all knew him and liked him. But he's nuts. I mean, he's absolutely nuts. And he wants to be nuts because when he goes to the physical, he wants to show, he wants them to throw him out. And so in the background of the movie is campus unrest. And there had been several films in the previous couple of years about campus unrest. It was a big deal, protesting against the war in Vietnam. And so there was RPM, Getting Straight, Strawberry Statement. These were kind of high budget kind of movies. Elliot Gould was in one of them. I don't think any of them did very well. This is not a high budget movie. This is a low budget movie. And as they were making the film, there were protests too. It was protested on almost every college campus, and especially around 1970 at the time of the Kent State, when the students were actually killed by the National Guard. And while they were making the film, the ROTC building there was invaded and occupied by the protesters. And when Nicholson heard about what was happening, he quickly grabbed a camera. Bill Butler, cinematographer, who had filmed many documentaries, they all ran down there. They got the two lead actors to come and mingle with the crowd. And so this was not a staged protest march. This was actual footage of this violent insurrection or violent protest on the campus. The casting of the movie is probably its downfall, especially in the fact that neither of the two lead actors ever had any kind of significant film career, so they look very odd to us, at least to me. William Tepper plays the basketball player. He's very, he looks stoned out. He doesn't, throughout the whole movie, none of the characters, this is not a movie where you have a lot of character development. He is supposed to portray his disorientation of what's going on in his life, this affair he's having. He sort of buys into the radical politics of his roommate, in the sense that he is now questioning authority. So, but he had been a high school basketball player, so Nicholson, and I think this is his first movie for a whole lot of people here, and I believe so that he would have at least look somewhat like a basketball player. And I would say that one of the highlights of this movie is Jack Nicholson and Bill Butler's photography of the physicality of the basketball game. There's a little bit of, oh, we got to win the big game kind of thing. You know, it's a staple of any time you have basketball games in movies. But the emphasis is more on the physicality of it, and you can really sense Jack Nicholson's great love of the game in these sequences. So he's questioning his authority. Now the coach is played by Bruce Dern. Luckily we have, despite these two, which I thought were very, very poorly cast, we have Bruce Dern as the basketball coach, and he really gives a terrific performance. He doesn't overplay it. He sort of looks like a Bobby Knight kind of coach at times, but then at other times, you know, he seems to actually care about the kind of struggle that his star basketball player is having with his reluctance to obey authority, which was in the air. That was in the air in 1970, 1971. All authority was being questioned, if not challenged. And we get Karen Black as the professor's wife. Very good. I mean, she has a scene that rivals the scene that Meg Ryan, I forget which movie that was in, I'm sure you understand, during a kind of a sexual experience, a fake one in Meg Ryan's case. This is a backseat experience where Karen Black is really good. But again, her character isn't very well developed. And then we get her husband being played by Robert Towne. I have to say that Robert Towne is a much better screenwriter than he is an actor. And this was a part that if Nicholson was younger, he could have played the basketball player, or and certainly the kind of lunatic roommate. But he certainly could have played this professor better than Robert Towne plays him. Henry Joglin, who directed A Safe Place, also has a brief part in this as another professor who is very sympathetic to the radical tendencies of some of the students at the university. So Nicholson decided to direct the movie. He only directed 2 more movies, and as well as the basketball sequences are really well done. But I mean, the film really doesn't have any kind of cohesion to it at all. Like I say, the characters aren't well developed, although Nicholson says in the one single supplement in an interview from around 2010, that was a very expressionistic novel, and he was trying to keep some of that feeling of the novel in his direction of the movie. And there's some other good sequences, and probably the weakest performance. Well, let's get to another of the better performances, and that would be Michael Warren, who was a star basketball player at UCLA, and he would later his acting career would probably reach its most memorable in Hill Street Blues, and he's really good. You know, you can see he's a natural actor. But the performance by Anthony Margada, or Michael Margada, as the radical, I mean, this is method acting. He was a method actor, and boy, we get a heavy dose of method acting from Margada. And he went on to have a career as a sporting actor, but he was mostly known for his setting up actor studios. I guess he taught, maybe perhaps even ran the actor studio in L.A. In Rome, he set up very much of the Stanislavski School of Acting. but I don't think it works. It doesn't work here. William Tepper, who plays the basketball player, he would go on to become a significant writer and producer rather than an actor. But when you look back in movies like this, I think you, especially in this craziness, the craziness of the era, if you haven't lived through the era, especially, these performances look really weird. Even though the character that Michael Morgado plays is an emblematic character of the times. I mean, I knew quite a few of them. And in fact, when he finally goes for his draft physical, he totally freaks out. He's been popping pills. He wants his brain to be totally fried. So, he's just acts up unbelievably. But that was the case when I went for my physical. I had lost my college deferment, and almost immediately I was summoned to take a physical. I was now 1A in the draft. And when I went to the physical, the young man sitting next to me, who I had actually sat next to in the bus, and he was mumbling, never talked to me, he was just mumbling to himself the whole way. He did a similar type of outrageous outburst of craziness that they had. This was in our first orientation meeting, and it scared the heck out of all of us, but it was part of the crazy times that we were living in. And happy ending for me, because in the time that I went for my physical, if you were drafted and you went to boot camp, I think you were only there about 4 weeks before they would plop you down into the jungles of Vietnam. But for me, I didn't have to do a crazy outburst, and I didn't have to pretend I was crazy, which is what a lot of the kids did in my group. There was like 100 of them. There was only about 6 of us left that were 1A. I was one of them. They were either crazy or they had asthma, which was not that usual back in 1970. But a lot of people had it when they went for their physicals. But then President Nixon ended the draft for the next 2 months and then instituted a lottery. I came out 300 and something, so I was free. I was not going to be drafted. And by 1972, I don't think Nixon was using any draftees for Vietnam. So there's some good things in this movie to be sure, but the limited supplements, they don't even give an essay. You get a nice big booklet, and there's essays on about 5 of the movies in here, but there's not one on Drive You Said. There's a good overview of the whole BBS story. I think these were producers that had gotten together, including Bob Rafelson, the director, as kind of a separate part of it. I believe it was Columbia Studios at the time. And in the overview by Jay Hoberman, he does, there's only like a paragraph devoted to Drive, he said. And so there is this 10-minute supplement where we can hear Jack Nicholson, Bruce Dern, and a couple of the producers, but it's only like 10 minutes. And we think with 4 contributors, we could at least got a half an hour, especially because Nicholson is so animated and wanting to talk about this movie, and the gleefulness he had, because he just loved the fact that movies had this newfound freedom. Movies as far as discussing sexuality, radical politics, and nudity, because there's full frontal nudity. There's a scene in the locker room, in the shower room after a basketball game, full frontal male nudity, and Nicholson laughs. He said, "I wanted to start the film with that scene, but it would be a whole parade of penises." But the producer on the same segment, the supplement, says, we had to nix that right away. And then Bruce Dern too, because he gives a really good, he always gives good performances, but he's great at talking about his movies. So overall, an interesting historical artifact, maybe more than a successful movie. It did get some good reviews. It got a 3-star from Roger Ebert. The movie was the American selection for the Cannes Film Festival. Nicholson went to the movie. Was booed. It was I mean, this is not an audience movie even from 1971. And Nicholson tells a great story that he invited the Rolling Stones were living in the south of France at the time, and he invited them to this screening at the Cannes Film Festival. And when he mentioned the Rolling Stones, it suddenly set off a memory that I had read that, well, this is the 50th anniversary of Exile on Main Street, one of the Stones' greatest albums. It was, I think, probably my favorite Stones album. And that's where they filmed this. I mean, that's where they recorded Exile on Main Street, the south of France. So I'm really, I'm not, like I said, I'm not going chronologically through. These are the other 5 movies plus Safe Place, but slowly but surely I'll be getting through this really good box set that sets off a lot of memories for me, and certainly I think for people my age. Okay, thanks a lot for listening. I really do appreciate it. Comments are always welcome. Take care.